Hello, my name is Hamid. In this video, we're going to look over the IELTS exam. First, what does IELTS stand for? IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. And today in this video, we're going to look over the general format of the test. First, in IELTS we have two types. The first one is academic training module, and the second one is general training or general training module. If you want to use IELTS for a study, the test and the module that you should use is academic IELTS. And for migration, this is general training. And if you want to use IELTS for work, that is again general training module. Now let's have a look at the test format. The test has got 4 skills. The first one is listening and reading, writing, and speaking. That, as you see, it is in the form of an interview, in-person interview. In the listening test, we have got 4 different parts. Recording 1, in part 1, it's a conversation between 2 people, which is set in an everyday social context. The number of questions that you should answer in this part is 10 questions. Part 2, the second recording, it's usually a monologue about an everyday social context, a speech about local facilities, museums, and there are 10 questions that should be answered. In part 3, it's a conversation between up to 4 people set in an educational or academic context. For example, a university tutor and 1 or 2 or 3 students discuss over an assignment or a project that they should be doing. And the number of questions that should be answered, there are 10 questions. And in part 4 of the test, again, it's a lecture or a monologue, one speaker who's talking about an academic subject. It can be about agriculture, the environment, music, literature, or any mainstream topic. The number of questions is 10 questions. As you can see in this table, 40 questions in 4 parts. Number 1, part 1 and part 3 are dialogues, and part 2 and part 4 are monologues. The listening question types that we normally face in IELTS listening test are multiple, matching, plan, map, diagram, labeling, form, note, table, flowchart, and summary completion, sentence completion, short answer questions. Let's go to academic reading, because in reading, academic module and general training modules are different from one another. Let's first have a look at academic reading module. In the reading part, we have 3 different sections, let's say. Part 1 or section 1, we're having a long passage about one academic subject, and the number of questions can be 13 or 14 questions. And then in passage 2 or section 2, we are having another long academic subject, 13 or 14 questions should be followed. And part 3 or section 3, another long academic topic or subject, and there are about 14 questions. In general, we have to answer to 40 questions during 1 hour. The length of each passage is between 950 words to 1,200 words, plus the number of questions that should be covered. And in general training module, the reading is again in 1 hour. There are 3 parts or 3 sections, but the difference is that in section 1 or part 1, we're having 2 or 3 short texts. It can be about any type of everyday topic, for example, a brochure or an advertisement, anything that can be or should be read in daily life. And in part 2, again, we're having 2 texts. Texts that are giving information about the course, about the job, or about any type of everyday topic. The number of questions in part 1 and part 2, or section 1 and section 2, are 13 or 14 questions. But in part 3, we are having a long passage about a topic, and the number of questions that should be answered, 13 to 14 questions. Generally, we're having 1 hour time for the 3 sections, that we can divide the time into 3 20-minute parts in order to answer each section of IELTS General Training module. The common question types that we might face in IELTS reading are the following. You can pause the video in order to read these question types more carefully. Yes, in this part, diagram label completion, identifying a writer's views or claims, identifying information, matching features, headings, information, or sentence endings, multiple choice, sentence completion, short answer questions, summary note table, flowchart completion. The next skill, the third skill, is writing. Let's have a look at the academic writing. In academic writing, we have 2 tasks, task 1 and then task 2. In task 1, you're given 20 minutes. You have to write 150 words, a report about a piece of information, visual information, diagram, chart, graph, or table. Let's have a look at academic task 1, for example. You're being asked to write a report in 150 words at least about a diagram, chart, graph, or table. So this is an example of writing. Task 1 academic. 2 charts are given to you. One of them is bar chart, the other one is a line graph. And you have to write 150 words based on these 2 charts and also the topic. The topic says the chart and graph below give information about participants who have entered the Olympics since it began. And summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. As you can see, you've been asked to summarize the information, and it's very important to talk and find out the most important features and, if possible, make comparisons. This last one that I put it in the box is a set instruction that can be normally found in all IELTS writing task 1 academic. So let's have a look at general training writing. Again, 20 minutes, 150 words that should be written about a given topic. Let's have a look at one example of writing task 1, general training. You can pause the video to read the topic. Your friend had made a plan for you to see a movie together, but you cannot now join him. You found another friend who can go instead of you. So this is the topic, but after each topic or situation, we've got 3 bullet points. The first bullet point says, explain why you cannot go anymore. Maybe that was a usual plan between the 2. And say who can go instead of you, and say why this person is a good person to go with. So we have to write 3 body paragraphs, each one in response to one of the bullet points. Let's have a look at writing task 2, academic. You have to write 250 words at least in 40 minutes. For example, the topics can be like this. You can pause the video. Some feel governments, rather than private companies, should be in charge of medical services. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Or you can pause the video. In many countries, people are eating more and more unhealthy food and taking less exercise. What do you think are the causes and what can be done about it? You should write about the causes and also the solutions. Or this topic, you can pause the video. People these days watch TV, films, and other programs alone rather than with other people. Do the advantages of this outweigh the disadvantages? So this is advantages, disadvantages writing. Or this one, pause the video. Some feel that a school should be mixed with both girls and boys attending, while others feel the genders ought to be separated. This is the topic, and after that, the instruction or the question. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. In many countries, crime rates among younger people have been rising. Discuss the causes and solutions for this problem. So we should both write about causes and also solutions. So in general training writing task 2, the topics are more about general topics, not academic topics. Again, 40 minutes and 250 words should be written about the topic. Let's have a look at this one. Pause the video and study. In many countries, people are eating more and more unhealthy food and taking less exercise. As you can see, the topic is not that much academic, it's a mainstream topic. What do you think are the causes and what can be done about it? Again, we have to write about the causes and also the solutions. Let's have a look at the 4 criteria based on which our writing task 1 and task 2 are marked. The first criterion is task achievement or task response. It means that how much we have answered the question. Have we been able to answer the question completely, to cover all parts of it, or only partially we have addressed the question? The second one is coherence and cohesion. Coherence means, is our writing clear, meaningful, and understandable? And cohesion is the individual parts' connections. Are the sentences and the paragraphs logically connected to one another? The third criterion is lexical resources. It means the vocabulary, the words that we have used. Are they related to the topic of the writing? Or how advanced they are? And the fourth one, it's grammatical range and accuracy. It's not talking only about the accuracy or the correct grammar that you're using. It also talks about the range and variety of grammatical structures that we have been able to use. Let's go to speaking. Speaking in IELTS is usually held in form of an interview, in-person interview, except in IELTS Online. But in the paper-based IELTS and computer-delivered test, both, the candidates should go to the center in order to have an in-person interview with the examiner, as you can see in the picture. So, as it's mentioned, it's an interview. When you enter the speaking test room, the examiner greets you, not necessarily shaking hands with you, as the picture shows. And the examiner will start to record the interview in case that audio file would be needed for the further analysis. And you need to have a valid ID. It's better to have passport with yourself. And he or she asks your full name, the full name in the ID card. And they will ask you 2 or 3 introduction or warm-up questions in order to start the conversation. In part 1 of IELTS speaking, they ask you personal questions. I mean, questions about your home, hometown, work, or study. These are set questions. In addition to these questions, we might have questions about your habits, if you do photography, if you like baking cakes, or do you drive or walk, or any question that is related to your personal life. This part is mostly having the role of a warm-up in order to show how much you know and in order to become familiar with the environment. After part 1, that we can see the questions here. The questions that we normally have in part 1 are these. For example, what do you study? Where do you study that? Why did you choose the major? Do you like that subject or not? And whether it is a popular subject in your country. You can pause the video. You can pause the video to read these questions. These questions are about the study. And these questions are about life. You can pause the video. After part 1, we'll go to part 2. In this part, examiner gives you a cue card or a topic like this. They will ask you to take notes about the topic for 1 minute, and after that start talking about the topic for 1 to 2 minutes. The necessary time that you have to speak about the given topic is 2 minutes. Sharp at 2 minutes, they will cut you or stop you in order to have some follow-up questions or to go to the third part of the test. One of the cue cards can be this. Describe an interesting animal, and then there are some bullet points. You don't have to speak about the bullet points, but I think they are highly recommended. You can cover the 2-minute time by talking about each of these bullet points. Or it can be about an article that you have recently read in a magazine or an online newspaper. Or about this topic, a situation you were not allowed to use your cell phone. So those questions that I showed you were only some examples of part 2. Speaking of IELTS, every season or every 3 or 4 months, the questions are changed. You can track them online by typing recent IELTS speaking questions. Then in part 3, based on the questions that you're being asked in part 2, they will ask you some discussion questions in part 3. For example, if the topic was about animals, your favorite animal, then part 3 questions should be about animals. You can pause the video to study these questions. For example, the first one, what are the main roles of animals in your country? As you can see, the questions are general and you should not talk about yourself. You should generally talk about your ideas about the given topic. Or it can be about health. If the topic of part 2 was about a recent health article that you read in a magazine or online, part 3 questions, discussion questions, should also base on that. Or about mobile phones. So, generally speaking, is between 11 to 14 minutes. Part 1 usually takes about 4 to 5 minutes, about familiar topics. Part 2 between 3 to 4 minutes, a cue card, and a 2-minute speech. And part 3, 4 to 5 minutes, discussion questions about general topics. But the topics that are chosen for part 3 are related to the topic or the cue card that is given to you in part 2 of the test. The next thing is that, like writing, speaking has got its own criteria for assessment. 4 criteria: fluency and coherence. Fluency means do you have a lot of pauses to find ideas or the language? And coherence means is the answer that you are providing related to the question that you've been asked, or it is unrelated? lexical resources. It means vocabulary, paraphrase, and also the idiomatic language that you're capable of using. And grammatical range and accuracy, it's about the range and also the accuracy of the grammatical structures you're able to use in your speech. And pronunciation. Pronunciation means individual words pronunciation, individual words stress, sentence stress, assimilation, and all the features of a spoken language. The next thing is that how IELTS is calculated. We've got 4 skills, and the general band score is like the mean of all 4 skills, rounded up, not rounded down. For example, what does 6.5 mean? It means 7, 7, and 2, 6. For example, listening, reading, 7, and speaking and writing, 6. Your overall band score is 6.5 when the mean or average of each skill is at least 6.25. Less than 6.25, it would be 6. 6.25 and above would be rounded up into 6.5. As you can see here, 7, 7, 6, 6. It would be 6.5. 26, that would be rounded up into 6.5. This one is also 6.5. 7, 6, 6, 6. The mean is 6.25. That would be rounded up into 6.5. And look at this. For example, listening and reading 6.5, writing 5, speaking 7. Average of each score is 6.25 and the overall band score is 6.5. So, at the end of this presentation, I would like to thank you for being with us. For more videos, please stay tuned.